Welcome, Notre Dame fans, to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I am Vince D'Addario. That is Brian Driscoll. I do it wrong every time. That is Brian Driscoll. And it is Thursday of game week. I can't believe we're here. I'll probably say that again tomorrow. But today we talk about predictions for this game. We're going to talk about how this game is going to play out, what we're going to be keeping our eye on, all of that fun stuff. And let me just say how great it is to have my partner in crime back live and in person.
This is not a recording.
This is not a recording. This is live. This is fantastic. It's just not the same without my good friend Brian. So good to have you back, sir. Glad everything went well.
I'm trying to figure out what you did that I'm going to find out about later that is causing this sucking up. So I'm just preparing myself for what exactly that's going to be.
Hey, man, I'm all caught up, believe it or not. I've turned everything in. I'm good to go. But we are going to have some fun today with this show. And we're going to have fun with the Thursday shows, obviously, every week. But previewing the first game of the year, there's so many question marks out there. There's so many things that we just don't know the answer to that there's a lot of speculation that's going to happen in this show. Things we're confident in, but at the same time, we haven't seen anything on the field yet. So, Brian, this is going to be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, this is the great thing about openers. Number one, it signifies that football's back, right? That's obviously a huge thing. Love the fact that football's back. But the other part of it is this is your first chance to really see what this football team is like.
Right.
Now, again, we're going to make week one overreactions, right? We do it every year. And I mean just the college football world, not necessarily you and I, but we probably will because that's the data that we'll have to work with. But it's going to be our first chance to really see who this team is and what it's capable of. Is Jack Cohn, we'll kind of, just Vince, let's just kind of dive right into the storylines because it kind of leads into that. As I look at, for me, what the three big storylines are for me, and this is what is so exciting about finally getting to actually see some football, not just watching practice or talking to sources, but actually see what this team is about. Is this Notre Dame team going to are they going to keep rolling, or are what everyone around the country seems to think is going to hold true? Most people, not everybody.
Sure.
Most people believe that Notre Dame's going to not be a top 10 team and they're going to fall back. I'm going to have a story later. Pat Forty at Sports Illustrated, Notre Dame's going to be the biggest disappointment in college football. Their double-digit win streak is going to be over based on, I don't know. Who knows?
What?
Apparently Notre Dame is the only team in the country that lost players. So Texas A&M is going to be really good despite losing their quarterback and 4 starting offensive linemen, but Notre Dame's not, right?
Georgia,
for some reason.
Situation, right?
Right. They lost a
similar.
ton of players. So, I mean, that's just kind of how it is. But, is Notre Dame are they going to be right about Notre Dame?
Sure.
Or is Notre Dame going to keep rolling and just keep this thing clicking along? That's storyline number one. For me, big part of that is Jack Cohn. How good's Jack Cohn going to be? And I think that's the second part of this for me is I want to see what Jack Cohn's capable of. And then, of course, the third piece is this is our first chance to see the Marcus Freeman defense and what's that going to look like. So those are the things I'm excited to see. And then there's other little storylines. The receiver's going to be as good as you and I think they're going to be. How are they going to use the 2 running backs? What's the secondary going to look like? Is the D-line going to be as dominant as – I mean, there's so many things that we are – because right now we know nothing about this team.
Right, exactly.
Or any other team other than Nebraska, Illinois, UCLA, Hawaii, Fresno, UConn. All right, you know what I mean? Like, other than that, we really don't know a lot about anybody, and that's why I can't wait for Sunday to get here.
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest one for me is, again, you rattled off like 8 things.
Right. I could have listed a lot more.
100%. And all of which I'm going to be trying to keep an eye on, right? And trying to keep an eye on it live, but then going back and checking it out as well when we rewatch things. But the first and foremost thing is, for me, it's the Jack Cohn effect, right? Because he's got big shoes to fill. Regardless of your opinion of Ian Book, he still is the winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history, and that's the storyline, right? That no one can be as good as Ian Book was within this offense. And what, more importantly for me, okay, you've got the Jack Cohn effect. What's he going to be like as a starter? But what is the offense going to look like with him at the helm, right? And it's more of a Tommy Rees question than a Jack Cohn question for me, because I think Jack Cohn could operate whatever offense that Tommy Rees wanted to employ. So really, it's a Tommy Rees question: is what is this this new philosophy, this new, what's this offense going to look like, right? And that's what it is for me. Are we going to see the RPOs? Is he going to be creative with the two running backs, with the, that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on. That's the big picture offense for me. And then, of course, Marcus Freeman and the defense. Those are the two big picture things for me.
And you said you think Jack Cohn can operate any offense. Well, that's you and I's belief, but we still need to see it, right?
Absolutely.
That's where I come from, is everything I'm confident about. I still am now that we're closer to the game, I'm still a little bit nervous about, because now it's time to see it. But before we move on to the next part of it, we got a comment here from Old Grim. He says one of our loyal, regular Irish Breakdown listeners,
one of the originals
and members. I know I missed a lot, but spent the last 5 days in the hospital. Just got home. I'll be going back to see what I missed. You missed a lot, Old Grim, but that doesn't matter. We're just glad that you're back home and doing well and out of the hospital. So I did not know you were in the hospital. Certainly be in our thoughts and prayers, but we're glad you're back, and obviously feeling good enough to be back in. I just assumed, Vince, the last couple of days he wasn't in it because he was playing a lot of golf the last 5 days. So we're sorry to hear that you're in the hospital, but we're definitely happy that you're back home and seem to be in good spirits and ready to rock and roll, and just in time for you to kind of get settled in for Sunday night's kickoff. That's the most important thing. So glad you're feeling better, Old Grim, no question about it. So Vince, we talked about storylines. Let's dive a little bit into the matchups of this game, right?
Yes.
To me, there's a couple matchups. I mean, we could, if we wanted to, we could talk 2 hours about into each individual matchup, because, again, they're all unknowns. But there's a couple that I'm going to look at, and a couple that you're going to really look at to just whether it be to impact this game, what we're going to learn about Notre Dame. Sure. What's one of the matchups that you're going to have your eye on when you look at the Notre Dame offense against the Florida State defense?
Well, we're talking impact matchups here, and I'm looking at what part of the Notre Dame offense can really impact them in a positive manner. And I don't know how you go away from Michael Mayer. I have written down Michael Mayer versus the linebackers, but it's basically Michael Mayer versus Florida State. Like I'm sure if they're smart, they're going to employ different strategies of covering Michael Mayer, whether it's a linebacker, whether it's a safety, whether it's brackets, whatever the case may be. I don't think he's going to see the same coverage, all game long. And so what does that look like, and how does Notre Dame exploit Michael Mayer and get him the football? And then how do they use the fact that, okay, well, two guys are covering 87. That means somebody's one-on-one. How do we exploit that? So it's kind of the Michael Mayer effect. But that's my impact thing that I'm looking at first is how does Michael Mayer impact this offense and have an impact against that defense?
For me, I'm looking at it from on an outside standpoint, and I think it kind of ties into your impact matchup. Is look, Florida State's going to key on Michael Mayer, right?
Sure,
there's
absolutely.
no question, and they know that their linebackers can't cover him because they couldn't cover him last year. So who's going to take the pressure off of the running backs and the offensive line and the tight ends? Look, I mean, we talk about Notre Dame's going to do this, they're going to do that, but if you're Florida State, you have to first and foremost prepare to stop Notre Dame from running the football. You have to do that first. And so I expect them to still be aggressive with their run stunts and load the box, and that means they're going to say, hey, look, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with a guy that has 6 career catches. You're not going to beat us with Kyron Williams who rushed for 1,000 yards. And that's what I'm talking about with Kevin Austin. That's the matchup I want to see. Can he be that alpha guy? Now, do I expect him to look like Michael Floyd or Will Fuller in the opener? No, but I do want to see, what's his burst look like? Is he able to get separation? Is he able to make some catches? He doesn't have to have 9 catches for 150 yards. He just has to be able to say, hey, look, you know what? Once he gets kind of some of the rush shaken off of really not playing football in 3 years, can he be that alpha guy? And that's something I'm looking at, which means he's going to have to make some plays in this game, right? We need to see him make some plays in this game. So he's a guy that I look at and say, him against Travis Jay and Jarvis Brownlee and Jerrion Jones, the corners of Florida State, how is he going to be able to handle that? Do you have another matchup, Vince, that you're going to be keeping your eye on with the Notre Dame offense?
Absolutely. It's going to be the Notre Dame offensive line versus the defensive line, really the front seven, obviously, of Florida State, because like you said, this is kind of building off of what you just said. They're going to be doing run stunts. They're going to be playing games. They're going to be doing all kinds of stuff up front to try to prevent what Notre Dame wants to do offensively, specifically the run game. How does this brand new offensive line react to that? Can they protect Cone long enough to do what they need to do in the passing game? Can they give, creases to the two running backs that we have a lot of faith in? There's a lot of question marks about this offensive line, and I don't think we're going to get all of those questions answered Sunday night. But it's still an area that I think is very, very important to Sunday night, and one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
Yeah. To your point, Vince, whether they dominate or get dominated, one game doesn't define who this line's going to be.
Absolutely.
And we need to make sure we don't have overreaction to that one way or the other. If they dominate, it's like, well, Florida State's not that good. If they get dominated, I'm going to be super concerned, but it is just one game, and it is a group of 5 guys coming together for the first time. So we need to try not to overreact too much to that. Having said that, there is one matchup within that group that I'm most looking forward to seeing, and that's Blake Fisher going against Jermaine Johnson and Kyer Thomas. To me, that's 2 veteran guys, 2 guys that have transferred in from the SEC, Johnson from Georgia, Thomas from South Carolina.
Sure.
Florida State's going to have good depth. Quashawn Fuller is going to be there, coming off the bench. Derek McClellan's going to be coming off the bench. They're going to go after Blake Fisher, as they should. He's a freshman.
Absolutely. I would too.
How does he handle that? Now, look, I expect him to have some freshman mistakes. We've been saying that he's not going to look like, 2015 version of Ronnie Stanley the day or the 2020 version of Liam Eichenberg the first game of the year, right? He's not going to look like that. He's going to look great at times, and he's going to be down at times. Can he limit the big mistakes? That's something I'm curious to see. How does he handle that length and that speed? Something he's never seen in the game before. Now, he's seen it in practice with Foskey and Batoho and Myron and all those guys, but it's a different animal when it's in front of 80,000 people and you're on the road, right, and there's no do-overs, right? Yeah. You get beat or you make a mistake in practice, blow the whistle, run it again, right? You don't get to do that in games, right? So how's he going to handle that? It's going to be a big question, because if he can handle this environment, then I'm going to feel really good about his ability to go down the next few games, and he's only going to get better and better and better. Tony Stengel, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you very much. So that's the other matchup for me. I mean, big picture offensive line, absolutely, Vince. I don't disagree with that, but that one in particular is the one I'm looking for. To your one, the thing that the matchup I'm looking for, it's more of a storyline, big picture thing is, do they come off the ball with physicality or do they catch a lot? And to me, I can live with assignment mistakes in the opener.
Absolutely.
I can. That's fine.
I expect it. Yeah,
they're gonna miscommunicate on a twist, and it's gonna let somebody come running free. It's gonna happen, right? It's gonna happen. What I'm not gonna be okay with, because this isn't a communication or cohesiveness thing. This is a who are you? Right? What's your DNA thing? Come off hard, be physical, fire off the ball, get after it. If they're doing that, I can live with mistakes that are going to happen, because those will get cleaned up as we get into the season. If they're catching and not being physical in the run game, that's the only thing that I could see from this offensive line that's going to give me a long-term scare. Mistakes won't. I mean, Vince, you and I have been there, right? As coaches, as analysts, we've seen it. Games where you come out in the open, you're like, oh, that didn't look good. And then 3 weeks later, that team's blowing somebody out. It's the opener, right?
Right.
So, but there's never – opener's not an excuse for not being physical and being aggressive.
Right.
That's the difference for me.
Agreed. Yeah, I like I said, I expect mistakes. I would expect mistakes from a veteran O-line in week 1, because it's the first time you're going up against, a team that is it's the opener, so they're going to throw some stuff at you that you haven't seen on film, right? They're going to throw stuff at you that you're not necessarily prepared for, so you could screw it up. I mean, it's definitely possible, but it's how you react to that. What are the adjustments to that, and are they being aggressive in their mistakes? And I'm sure you've coached O-line at some point in your career. I've coached all the offensive.
Never coached offensive line.
No?
I've worked with them as the running backs coach. I've worked with linemen, but no, I've coached quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, and running backs. Never offensive linemen.
I've always been if you're on the offensive line, you're going to make a mistake. Make it aggressive. Find somebody and just put your helmet in their chest and do something. Right? I mean, don't just stand. Don't stand there and look around. That's not good, right? Find somebody. If you're going to make a mistake, just do it full speed. Find somebody, right? And so if we see that, that is going to I'm going to sleep so much better Sunday night, with my concerns about the offensive line. It's
right.
Because they're real concerns. They're real concerns because of what we've seen over the past few years. And so I need to see some aggressiveness. Mistakes, you can clean those up in film. You can clean those up in practice. And that won't be the difference in this game. A couple of mistakes or a few mistakes that this offensive line makes. That's not going to be an issue when it comes to the final score.
Right. Let's go to the other side of the ball. What's the first matchup that you're going to have your eyes on when you're watching the game on Saturday? Sunday
night. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to – Saturday's going to be a long day of great football, but I'm going to need the Notre Dame fix, and I'm not going to get it. But anyway.
Yeah. You'll actually be fine once you're like, wow, I wouldn't be able to watch all these wonderful games if Notre Dame had a game today.
Right, exactly. No, the first thing I'm going to be looking at is Houston Griffith. And you can say Houston Griffith versus
Cameron McDonald at tight end.
Whatever.
The running backs are going to be there. The slot receivers. It's whoever they throw at them. Right.
It doesn't matter. But it's going to be, is Houston Griffith doing his job so that Kyle Hamilton.
That guy.
So Kyle Hamilton can do his job. You know what I mean? And we've talked about
that lunch you were eating before the show started.
Gosh, I tell you what, man, it just went right to the brain. It's so Kyle Hamilton.
Sure, you grabbed the oregano thing for your lunch? Are you sure that's what you grabbed, Vin?
I'm in high school.
Okay.
I'm in high school.
Okay.
But no, Houston. We've talked about ad nauseum why Houston Griffith needs to be productive, why he needs to do his job, because it makes the defense and specifically Kyle Hamilton better at his job. So are we going to see Houston screaming downhill, making plays in the pass game? Are we going to see him, not making mistakes in coverage? Are we going to see him from a leadership standpoint, getting guys lined up where they need to be? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be Houston Griffith. And the problem for me, because we're going to be watching it on TV, I'm going to be watching it on TV. I'm going to be texting you an awful lot saying, hey, 3 wasn't in the picture on this one. How did he do? Like that kind of a thing, because we don't get the all 22 on TV, which is disappointing, but he's still a really, really important piece because, like I said, I think he's got the confidence. I think he's got the leadership. I think he's poised to have a very good season, and it starts Sunday night.
And it's big for him specifically for 2 reasons. Number one, obviously big picture. He was committed to Florida State at one point in time.
That's right.
Right. Point 2 is he played pretty poorly against Florida State last year. He got beat a couple times down the field. Technique got bad. He got grabby. It's
they're going to come after him.
They're going to come after him.
Yeah.
And so I think he's got something to prove. This can be like, hey, I don't care about last year, right? Last year's in the past. Look what I did tonight. I played big-time football.
Right.
We had an article up today, from I think it was from Grant Del Vecchio. He's just kind of some comments from Notre Dame players, and he's talking about Kyle Hamilton was just singing Houston Griffith's praises. So clearly he sees something. Now, whether or not that manifests itself on game day remains to be seen. But that's a big key for Notre Dame this year, and it'd be good for Houston to kind of get the season off on a strong note. I think it'd be a good confidence booster for him, a much-needed confidence booster for him. That's a matchup. I'm going to stay in the secondary events. I'm going to go with Cam Hart against the Florida State receivers. I think that's going to be a big one. He's going to have some interesting matchups. At times, he's going to be matched up against smaller, faster guys. At times, he's going to be matched up against Andrew Parchment, who's a bigger 6'3", kid, played at Kansas, came from Kansas. He's more of a possession receiver. He's a guy that can present some size, against Cam Hart. He actually has size that's similar to or a little bit longer than Cam Hart. So how's he going to handle those 2 types of players, and how's he going to handle the spotlight? If he gets beat early in the game, is he going to bounce back like he did in the spring game? Or, again, it's a whole different animal when it's something that's happening in practice or a blue gold game than when it's happening on the road in Tallahassee, Florida against another team, and there's no do-overs, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious how he's going to do. I think he's going to perform well, but we need to see it, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the thing. And so, but that's a matchup I'll have my eye on certainly early on. The second one for me, Vince, is I'm really looking forward to seeing Justin Adamiola and Riley Mills matched up against the Florida State guards. That's the position where Florida State has veteran players and good players is guard. Their best offensive lineman coming into the season by far is Devontae Love Taylor. He's playing right guard. He's played tackle in the past. He gives them to me a boost in pass pro inside. Obviously, Dylan Gibbons is going to start at left guard. Notre Dame, played at Notre Dame, played in this game last year for the Irish. Talented player, big, strong kid. 2 big, strong guards, veteran guards. A lot of experience, a lot of being in programs for a period of time. So I want to see that against, again, Notre Dame's somewhat undersized but athletic, talented 1-2 punch that you and I think is going to be such a big part of this team. I expect Jason Adamiola to become one of Notre Dame's more dominant players. I expect Riley Mills to kind of be that super sub kind of guy, where, hey, Jason's the star, but when Riley comes in, you don't miss a beat. And sometimes maybe they play together. This is going to be a great test for them because even though Florida State's offensive line as a whole has some question marks and all this, I think they're going to be better than they were last year, but I definitely think they're going to be good at guard. Tackle's a question mark. Center's a bit of a question mark. Guard, just because those are redshirt freshmen who, started some games last year but didn't play well in some areas. Those two guards, if they're able to contain Notre Dame's three techs, then that's where Florida State's going to have some success running the football. And it's going to keep Notre Dame from getting the kind of pressure on the quarterback they're going to need to get up the middle. That would be a concerning matchup if they lose it. If Notre Dame dominates that matchup, if you can beat their best blockers, then they're going to have a hard time moving the football. So it's going to be a big matchup either way. Whichever way it goes, it's going to be a big matchup. And I'm looking forward to seeing if those two players are as good as you and I think they're going to be this season.
My final one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on defense is the Will linebacker. Mm-hmm. And it probably would not have made my list if Marist was not injured, but he is. And so JD Bertrand, who I have a lot of faith in, and you and I have talked about how we have faith that he's going to be just fine in the run game. But what does that rotation look like? Is Shane Simon going to come in on third down? Are they going to take the Will off the field completely? Is Shane going to play on some first and second down? Like, what does that rotation look like? How does JD look like? How does JD look in his first start? Mm-hmm. All of that. The Will linebacker, I think, is very, very important because they essentially played with 10 guys on the field last year. Mm-hmm. And if we get if Notre Dame gets any kind of production out of the Will linebacker.
That's what happens when you get closer to game day, right?
I know, right? Seriously. But if they get any kind of production out of the Will linebacker, they're going to be better off for it. And so that's kind of an area that I think they're going to be successful. But again, it's game one. I need to see it. And it's not what they intended 2 weeks ago, right? They've had to adjust some things because from what I understand is Marist was involved in a lot of different packages, and they've had to make a lot of changes because Marist isn't available anymore.
Right. It impacted their first and second down defense. It impacted their nickel, their dime, all of it. Yes.
All of it, yeah. And so they've had to, how are they going to adjust? You can't just insert JD in everything that Marist was going to do.
Right. They're different players.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be creative. You got to use the aggregate, right? To use a Moneyball term, you got to use the aggregate. You got to use multiple guys to fill in what Marist was going to do. So what does that look like? And so that's what I'm going to keep my eye on.
Let's get into some keys of the game, Vince.
Yes.
Start with keys of the game on offense.
Okay.
Number one, I think this is the most important side of the ball when it comes to this matchup. And that's not just specific to this Florida State game. That's sort of this is always the case when a team goes on the road against even a decent team. Start fast. Have to start fast. You have to come out early in the game and you have to move the chains. You have to quiet the crowd. You need to get points early. You have to either want, and it's going to work out one of two ways. Number one, if your defense playing well early, it gives you separation. You get a jump start. You get 17 points in the first quarter and a half. They've got 3, and now all of a sudden they're out of their game plan because now you're piling on. That's example number one. The other example is it's like North Carolina last year. For 3 quarters, I thought the Notre Dame offense against North Carolina was just kind of okay. The key, however, is when they were at their best was in the first quarter. Their ability to answer. So remember, Notre Dame got the ball first, didn't get points. North Carolina scored on their next 2 possessions. Notre Dame answered each of those possessions touchdown for touchdown. And it gave the defense time to get caught up to the speed of the game and all those type of things. So Notre Dame was able to, once they kind of defensively figured it out, then the offense kind of pulled away. It wasn't sexy the rest of the way, but it was important to answer those scores. That's the other part of it, is if Florida State comes out and they're doing some things or giving the defense problems, then Notre Dame has to be able to see that and answer those scores.
I want to, I guess, I love that fast start because I think that is super important. It's going to shut up a lot of people really quickly if Notre Dame comes out fast. and just puts this game away the way they should.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a little more specific to the offensive game plan. I really want to see Jack Cohn spread the ball around in the pass game, whether that's RPOs, whatever that looks like, getting multiple guys involved, because you and I are both high on what this wide receiving core can do. We're high, obviously, on the tight end group. Spread the ball around. And I anticipate that is going to happen, but I think it's very, very important. Don't key in on certain guy. We've seen that in the past, and that doesn't work out very well, right? Especially when you're on the road and in a hostile environment, all of that fun stuff. So spread the ball around is my first one. And my second one kind of goes along with that, but it's establishing the run/running backs. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is you need to be balanced. You have to have a run game. You can't just throw it all over the yard. That's not who Notre Dame is, and I don't think that's who they want to be. So you have to establish the run. But when I say establish the run/running backs, you want to get those running backs involved in the pass game as well. And we know that that's going to be an emphasis for Notre Dame. But what does that look like? Are you putting Kyron Williams in the slot? Are you sending guys out from the backfield? Is it a 2, running back set? But you need to establish both of those guys. And they need to get, and I guess I'm saying specifically to Chris Tyree, he needs to get meaningful carries when the game matters. And again, I feel like that's going to happen, but if we're going off of last year, it didn't really happen from the second half of the season. And so both of those guys need to be very involved in the game plan, both on the ground and through the air.
So for me, I'm not so much concerned about establishing the running game. I'm not as concerned about that, because sometimes that can be dictated by what the other team is doing. If Florida State wants to put 9 in the box all day, I don't care if Notre Dame runs it 3 times. I don't care.
Fair enough.
No, I mean, your point is good.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say is I'm with you, but I'm going to go at a different angle, because I don't care necessarily about establishing the running game. What I care about is playing physical. If they run it 3 times or 30 times in the first half, I don't care. But when you run it, be physical. If they are running RPOs, you pull it and you throw it outside, because that's what the defense dictated, but you're still blocking a run game. I can still evaluate whether you're coming off and firing off and smacking Florida State in the mouth, right? If Notre Dame comes out in this game and plays passively on offense, and I'm talking about the offensive line, like they did against Louisville to start the 2019 season off, right? A lot of catching, okay? Right. That's gonna give Florida State to say, hey, this ain't the same offensive line we played last year. That's going to give them a boost in confidence, right? You come out that first drive and you smack them in the mouth. I don't care if you run it 2 times or 10 straight times right in the end zone. I don't care. I'm not someone that gets, Vince, I'm not someone that gets into, you got to run X number of times a game. You got to you got to score. That's the goal, right? I don't care if you score by running 10 straight run plays or you score by running 5 straight pass plays. Just scoring is the goal. But you can still be physical. Passing the ball doesn't mean you can't be physical, especially if they're running RPO. So to me, even more important than establishing the running game. And the point is, if they're not getting big gains, because let's say there's a couple mistakes or Florida State's just playing well or they're loading the box, I can live with that as long as they're being physical. Because if you remain physical, that forces Florida State to keep the box loaded, which then is going to open up some stuff on the perimeter. But if you're being passive and you're not firing off and you're not being aggressive, then Florida State can say, hey, look, these guys aren't moving us. So we don't need to put 8 in the box. We can put 6 in the box, 7 in the box. We can insert our safeties and play normal, kind of quarters coverage, or we can just play our normal defense. We don't have to load them up. That's the danger, because then they can spread out their defense a little bit more. So establishing a physical presence is my number 2. And my third one, Vince, is I want to see them be aggressive offensively. That's more from a play calling standpoint and a quarterback standpoint, meaning I want to see them moving lots of personnel, moving around, shifts, things like that, run some play actions, take some shots, run some screens to try to create some big plays, run some isolations trying to get Braden Lindsey free for a big play early in the game, throw the ball downfield, do all that kind of stuff that keeps Florida State off balance and on their heels. If you can do that early, then that will set up the run game. Because I could see a scenario, Vince, in which Notre Dame comes out early and they're actually throwing the ball a little bit more because they know Florida State's going to be aggressive. You're taking your shots. You're getting the ball at the perimeter. You're running perimeter screens. You're doing the ISOs. You're using formations and shifts to get ISOs for Keys or Lindsey or Austin or whatever, Michael Mayer. Take your shots down the field, all that kind of stuff. that's going to soften up Florida State. Once you get them softened up, that's when you come right back with the hammer. That's when you establish run game.
Yeah.
So, and again, sometimes you use the run game to set up the pass. I think this could be a game where you're going to use the pass game and the screen game to set up opportunities to bury Florida State with the run game.
I agree.
But you've got to be aggressive. You can't come out and try to let's feel our way and all that kind of stuff. I want to see them, even if they throw it, first play of the game, if they take a shot and it's incomplete, I can live with that. Be aggressive. Set that tone early. To me, it's all about the tone you set. And that's where all my keys came from. They're all tone-setting things for the Notre Dame offense.
Yeah.
What's your third key, Vince?
Yeah, I wrote down 2, but the third one for me is the screen game. And
so you're pulling a Brian? Are you saying you're going to go with extras because you can? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
I dig it.
Because look, man, I saw one of the periods that we were at practice, and obviously we're not speaking specifics because we're not going to give away the game plan or anything, but I was digging what they were doing with the screen game. It just so much action, so much movement, so much moving around, multiplicity in the formations. It's similar to what you were just talking about. But I think that, there's been a big complaint over the past 5 years or so that Notre Dame just isn't either good at the screen game or they don't use it enough. And I think that's going to change on both fronts. I think that they're going to be good at it. And I think that they're going to really utilize it. And as you mentioned, I fully anticipate Florida State loading the box early on. And then Notre Dame is successful in the screen game and the pass game, and they have to take guys out. Mm-hmm. And then Notre Dame runs the ball, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I agree with that. I think that's absolutely the game plan that Notre Dame should have going in because, look, you watch any film of Notre Dame, we have to stop the run. You have to stop the run to beat Notre Dame. And if you watch any film of Jack Cohn, it's, hey, he hands off. He throws it when he has to. He's an efficient quarterback. If you're watching his Wisconsin film, right? I mean, that's who Jack Cohn is, according to –
Which Mike Norvell said they will do to a degree.
Yeah.
To a degree.
And, right. And so that would be the defensive game plan. Stop the run, prevent Cohn from maybe making big plays, things like that. But – it's the run first. And I think that feeds right into the hands of what Notre Dame wants to do offensively. I really, really do. If I'm Tommy Rees, I'm like, load the box, baby. Here we come. So, and we'll see how it plays out. But I feel like the screen game is going to be an important piece of that.
What's your other one?
What do you mean?
You said you wrote down 2.
Oh, no. The 2 I already talked about. And then that was my third one.
Oh, I thought you were talking about one. My bad.
No,
so,
you're good.
You have 3. So let's go defense, Vince. What's your number one key for the Notre Dame defense?
Number one key for the defense is you have to focus on Florida State's run game. That's it. When we broke down what Florida State does well offensively, it's run the football. And people may not realize that that's the case. But when you average 200 yards a game, that's a pretty strong piece of what you're trying to do. And if Jordan Travis is the starting quarterback, he's going to be involved in that running game. And so the extension of you have to establish the run defense is you have to contain a mobile quarterback. And that's been an issue for Notre Dame for years. So it's kind of like my key, and then it's like if we're writing an outline, you got that, and then like the A underneath, it's contain the mobile quarterback.
Mine's I'm interjecting here because my number one point is contain Jordan, and all my other ones build off is contain Jordan Travis.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't let him. You can't let him be an athlete. You can't. You have to shut him down.
Look, Florida State's not good enough, in my opinion, to just consistently move the ball down the field on Notre Dame. I don't think that they are. Just like we said that about Notre Dame against Alabama last year, right? Notre Dame wasn't going to go on long, sustained 10-play drives every time. They needed to rip off some big plays. They couldn't do that against Alabama. Same thing here. My concern in this game is that Jordan Travis starts making plays when there's not a play there to be had. So Notre Dame defends it perfectly, and then he makes a guy miss, gets in space, and rips off a 15-yard gain. Those are the kind of things you can't allow with any kind of regularity, and that's what kept Florida State in the game last year.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be a better
down. Things like that. Like those are backbreakers.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got 3rd and long, and then he scrambles for a first down. You're like, come on.
Right. Yeah. And that leads me to my second point, Vince, which is you have to have early down negatives. Is incredibly important to get early down negatives, because if you get into 2nd and long and 3rd and long, hey, you want to scramble, that's fine because it's 3rd and 12. We're going to tackle you before you get to the first down marker. 3rd and 5 is when I get more concerned about Jordan Travis using his legs. I want to get them off schedule, get them to be where they got to drop back and throw the football. That's where I think Notre Dame defensive line can really get turned loose and make some big plays. But that means tackles for loss in the run game. It means stops for no gain in the run game. It means forcing incompletions on 1st and 2nd down. When you can get to the quarterback, you've got to get him down. That's a big key, whether it's Travis or Milton or both of them. When you get to him, you can't miss. You got to bring him down. And so that's a big key for me. That's my number 2 point, Vince, is early down negatives. And a negative for me is if as an offense, if I don't gain a yard on 1st down, that's a negative. So I'm not talking about necessarily just negative yardage. I'm talking about negative offensive plays, which is tackles for loss, sacks, incompletions, and obviously turnovers. But I'm focusing on the things that happen on a more consistent basis. Yeah. What's your second one? My
second one, I had 2 for defense. My second one is minimizing the big plays because again,
that's my third. So I mean, we're on the same page here. Yeah.
Because, and you said it, they're not going to be able to sustain multiple drives.
It's the great equalizer.
Right. I have full faith in Notre Dame's defense that they're going to be able to shut down long drives. I don't anticipate any, double-digit play drives for Florida State. You know what I mean? Or at least multiple ones of those.
Right.
But you're going to have to be careful of the big play. You don't want one to go in over the top. You don't want, Jordan Travis to break one loose after a missed tackle and just go because he can. He's got the athletic ability to do that. You don't want Mackenzie Milton getting flushed from the pocket, throwing across his body to the other side because you've forgotten about the backside and you got a guy wide open, right?
Right.
Those are the things that you have to be aware of with this team because they will big play you.
Right.
So they have to be and Marcus Freeman's defense in the past has been susceptible to the big play. And so that's my only concern
against the better teams on the schedule. Correct.
Right. Yes. Right. Absolutely. And so that's my only concern is you have to minimize. They may get 1 or 2, but you got to minimize.
I mean, they'll have a couple of those. You have to, like you said, you have to limit it. That was my third key was be disciplined, which meant, be disciplined, limit big plays. It's exactly what I wrote, right? It means if you got the B gap, take the dang B gap, right? Don't try to be hero.
Right.
That's the danger when you play an aggressive defense is guys get so much in the playmaking mode that they go to the ball without any thought of what their path to the ball is supposed to be. Right. And that's the key. You think you're in cover 2 and you're really in cover 1 and you think you have safety help, you don't. And a guy runs by you. Those are the plays. Florida State's good, but they're not good at this. Look, I've seen this. Florida State stinks. I was driving home yesterday, Vince, and I had to show on, and some comments from this terrible Florida State team. This game shouldn't be close. And I'm like, you believe that at your own peril, okay? Because this isn't your daddy's, right? I've said this isn't your daddy's Florida State, okay? But this also isn't Vanderbilt, right? This is a quality football team that if you make a lot of mental mistakes on the road can make this a game, if not knock you off, okay? That's just the reality of it. If Notre Dame plays their game, I don't think it's going to be competitive for very long. But that's the key. Play your game.
Exactly.
Be disciplined. Know the cut. Make sure the communication is happening. A part of that's on the coaching staff. They were unprepared for the crowd in 2019 at Georgia. As unfathomable as that should be, that was a fact. They admitted it after the game. They were unprepared for the environment in Miami in 2017. Has the coaching staff learned from that mistake, and are they going to be prepared for that? Sounds like they will be. I mean, they've been addressing it. The players talked about it and all that kind of stuff. So it sounds like they will be, but then that also involves making sure that you have ways of communicating without voice.
Right.
That's a key. And then being able to, you may give me a sign and I think you are telling me that, hey, I got you, but really I'm telling you, hey, you're all alone. I got the number 2. Well, that kind of communication is the difference between forcing an incompletion or giving up a 60-yard touchdown. And those are the things they have to eliminate. Those are the things. So, we were we were spot on those defensive keys, right? No question about it. As far as spot on, meaning on the same page. I'm not saying we're spot on like we're right. We'll find out on Sunday night.
We'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out.
But we're on the same page. So, Vince, it's that time.
Okay.
I've been asked this on like every radio show I've been on. What's your score prediction? I said, nope, that is only for our channel on YouTube. So we're there.
I love that.
We're there, Vince. It's prediction time.
Yeah, so here's how I think this game is going to go. I do think Notre Dame, I like the makeup of this team. I like the leadership of this team. I don't think that Notre Dame is going to come out flat. I just don't see that with this particular group. There's just Kyron Williams isn't going to allow the offense to come out flat, right? It's Marcus Freeman isn't going to allow the defense to come out flat. I just don't see it, right? So I think Notre Dame comes out, and I think they put a couple scores up on the board early. I think the defense is flying around the football. Whether they give up some points or not, it doesn't really matter to me because I think the offense will be consistent in scoring points, and it's going to take Florida State out of what they want to do. And essentially, this game is going to be over at halftime. I'm not saying it will be. I'm not saying that you bench the starters at halftime or anything like that. But I'm saying I don't think we're going to be worried about the outcome come halftime, right? And so I'm hoping to see some other guys. I'm hoping to see some rotation, some things of that nature. I'm hoping to see, obviously, some depth at the wide receiver position. It'd be great to see Tyler Buckner in the red zone. All of that stuff. That'd be great. But what I see happening is Notre Dame scores early. I think they score often, and I think the defense does a very good job against this Coach Norvell coached offense. And I just think Florida State is still a year or two away from being able to compete on a even playing field with Notre Dame. So my final score, Notre Dame 42, Florida State 21. And I think once the Notre Dame takes their foot off the gas, so to speak, it'll be about 42-14. And I think Florida State gets a touchdown late, maybe against the twos or whatever the case may be. So I've got them doubling up Florida State 42-21.
I could see that. On this events, I could see it be even wider. I could see it, but I'm not ready to go there yet. I still say they've got to prove to me that this offensive line can play well. They got to prove to me that they're going to be more aggressive, that they're going to open up the offense. They got to prove to me that they can be better in the red zone, right? And my final score is going to reflect that. I have Notre Dame winning 37-20. Now, I could see a scenario like you do where it's not, Florida State gets a score late. It's not – I don't think it's going to be an overly competitive game for very long, meaning I'm not saying Notre Dame's going to be up like 30-3 at halftime, but it's going to be clear early on who the better team is.
Correct.
Even if the score doesn't necessarily reflect it early on. I remember, I think it was 2015, and Ohio State and Michigan were playing, and it was a really close score at halftime, and a buddy was like, Michigan might pull us. I said, no, they're not. They're lucky that they're, you know what I mean? And then Ohio State went out and won like 42-20-something, right? I mean, you could tell early who the better team was. I think of the Michigan State-Alabama game, the playoff game was 2015, where it was like 7-0 or 10-0 at halftime, but it felt like 40-0. You remember that?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be kind of not quite that dramatic, but it's going to be a game where maybe Notre Dame's only up 7 or 6 at half, but you're kind of like, yeah, they're on the verge of just really blowing this thing open. I could also see Notre Dame jumping all over Florida State early, but again, I need to see it.
Sure.
Right. And so I'm being a little bit cautious. So I see 37-20, which means I see 3 field goals. 3 field goals means you're getting in the red zone and not putting the ball in the end zone. So
good point.
If they're better there, I think 37-20, that's 7 scores. I see Notre Dame getting 7 scores, right? 4 touchdowns, 3 field goals. So I see them moving the ball on Florida State, but they have to prove to me that they can punch it in the end zone and get 6. If they can do that, I mean, again, 7 scores, if you turn 2 of those into touchdowns, Vince, we're looking at a wholly 45 points or, 48 points, right? I mean, so the potential's there. If they can be better in the red zone than they were last year, then I think this score could get out of hand. But that's kind of where I see it early. Is I see them early in the game having to settle for field goals, and then they pile it on with some 6s in the second half. That's how I think the game is going to go.
Well, I'll add a little bit to this because we didn't talk special teams, and frankly, why would we? But I need to see Jonathan Doerr's confidence. And honestly, 3 field goals for Notre Dame may not be a bad thing because I think he needs to get back up on the horse. And I don't want him coming off the field and talking to the psychiatrist the sports psychiatrist on the sideline. Like, she's not your friend right now. Like, I don't want you talking to her. I want you, I'm hoping that he has a bounce back year. And if they have 3 field goals and they're right down the middle, with power and everything else, that's going to tell me a lot about Jonathan Doerr too, because it is a hostile environment. And if they're kicking field goals early, that means the score is close. That means the pressure is on, right? And I would love to see him kick a couple field goals early. As much as I want touchdowns, there is a benefit to kicking some field goals early. So I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I would be okay if we never find out if Jonathan Doors turned the table or not. And that has nothing to do with Jonathan Doors. Just I'm always the guy. Give me 6.
I could not agree more.
I have a buddy who, a guy that I grew up with. We went to high school together, and he does a lot of like fantasy sports with the Athletic. Guy named Jake Seeley, good friend of mine. And he has this kick. He's like ban kickers. He wants to ban kickers. Well, I want to de facto ban kickers by never needing them except for extra points.
Fair enough.
But in seriousness, that's going to be the difference between whether or not this team can be a 37 to 38 point per game team or a 42 to 43 point per game team. It's going to be the red zone success. And so I don't necessarily have them looking great in the red zone just yet. But if they are that good, if they are able to take threes, get 6 instead of 3, then I think this team is going to just run Florida State off the field. I think Florida State's ascending. I've said it. I like what Mike Norvell's doing. He's going to get this thing turned around to some degree. Now, are they going to be a perennial top 5 team again? I don't know. But they're going to be a good team again soon. It's just not going to be on September 5th.
Right. And it might not. It might be. I mean, they. I think you said this before in an earlier podcast. I'm happy that this game is week 1. Mm-hmm. If this game is week 10 or 11, I think we're having a bit of a different discussion. Would I still think Notre Dame is the better team? I would. But I just think that this Florida State team is going to get better as the year goes. And so is Notre Dame. I mean, let's be honest. Right. So is Notre Dame.
Playing on the road is a lot easier in week 1 than it is in
absolutely.
week 10. It just is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah. Yep.
Vince, so that's it for our prediction podcast. We do have some comments. We do have some questions. We do have some score predictions. So since we still have a little bit of time, I am expecting some news to break in the Notre Dame football world in about 15 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes or so. So if we're still on when that happens, we'll bring that to you.
Brian. I have no idea what Brian's talking about, everybody. So just want to put that out there. Keeps it all to himself.
The people that follow recruiting know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Tommy Nation Tommy Guns is in here. IB Nation. Nate Wallace. So I was on a Florida State podcast last night, YouTube podcast last night, and there was 4 guys that were part of it. 3 of them didn't do a lot of talking. They seemed reasonable. The other guy that did a lot of talking was less so. Nice guys though, but yeah, they tweeted out this morning that they had that they shattered their previous mark of live people in a live chat. And it was because of Notre Dame people, because I tweeted it out beforehand, and you guys were the reason for that. So Nate Wallace says, Brian, you schooled Nate Greer on the FSU YouTube show yesterday. He came at you with the typical talking points. You threw to them and went right over his head. Nate says, Irish Breakdown is by far the most informed college football program out there. All the other shows sound amateurish when I compare them. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very.
What numbers did they hit? Did they say, out of curiosity?
They didn't say no.
Okay.
They just said the tweet was they shattered their previous record is what they said. So that's all I know. And I mean, he did shattered in like all caps. So I'm assuming it was
good for them.
Assuming it was kind of a big one, but that was all Notre Dame fans, because they came out in droves last night. It was a fun show. Yeah, he says you guys shattered our all-time live view count tonight. So there we go.
Them.
Yeah,
good for them. That's awesome.
And good for the people here that were part of it. The Fifth Horseman, Ivy, is bad to the bone. You just had to get your singing in, didn't you?
Did. You knew it was
Kenny Moore is so ready for the season. T-3 days.
So am I. I get to scratch the itch. As you're looking for another one, I get to scratch the itch. I got freshman football tonight. I've got varsity high school football tomorrow night, and then a slew of college games on Saturday. But then the dessert, like the main course, however you want to say it.
There's even a game on Monday, which I'm excited about. Louisville and Ole Miss is on Monday. It's going to be phenomenal.
Exactly. So all kinds of good football.
I love it. Before we get to some of these predictions, Andrew Goss says, to be honest, Brian and Vince can have their own sports show. We do have our own sports show. We come to you every day at 12:30 with our own sports show.
I don't know that this needs to be on TV. But,
well, it is. I mean, it's. I mean, most people stream now anyway. You know how many times I've had people send me pictures of them watching us on their televisions?
Really? No kidding. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because it's everything is streamed now, so they're getting
Good
YouTube
point.
on their TVs. We got a super chat down here, Vince. You want to pull that up?
I absolutely will pull this up. All right. Since you're going to stay at the top, smart man. Senor Francis says, thank you for the outstanding coverage. Signed up for the message board and loving the content and breakdowns. Go Irish. Beat Seminoles. Senor Francis, gracias, sir.
Yes. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for being a part of the board, and thank you for being with us. And
that's awesome.
You guys have been with us through the whole summer, all the topic after topic. But it's now here, and I'm excited that you all are with us. We got some predictions, Vince.
Love it.
Nate Wallace kicks things off. He goes Notre Dame 31, Florida State 20. Nathan Lytle, Vince sees it kind of your way. He has got Notre Dame winning 42-17. Vince, we got another super chat down there. You want to grab it? I think that's from Ron.
Got it. Robert.
Okay.
Robert Jaworski says, you guys are awesome. Notre Dame 48.
Thank you, Robert.
FSU 14. Thanks, Robert. Really appreciate it.
Robert sees a beatdown.
I love that so much.
I love it. Not nearly as big of a beatdown as the Fifth Horseman.
Whoa, 402-0. Holy moly. That would be setting all kinds of records.
That would be a record.
Yes.
Andrew Goss says, I have them at 31-14. So a bit of a slow start for the offense, but a good start for the defense there. He has Notre Dame has 400 passing yards, 150 rushing yards. I'll say this, Andrew, since you went there, if they have 400 passing yards and 150 rushing yards, they're going to score a whole lot more than 31 points unless they are just terrible in the red zone. But that is something that Notre Dame needs to have to prove, that they can be more effective in the red zone. But if 550 yards of offense, barring turnovers or bad red zone performances, usually results in at least 40 points. Usually. But that's, again, the red zone's offense is going to have to be better. DJ Wilson, Notre Dame 34, Florida State 10. The Fifth Horseman says, I want to see 2015 play calls or something from the Weiss era. That would get into the aggressiveness that we talked about. Tim Sully, Notre Dame 41.
Like that.
Florida State 17. Old Grim is in a good mood today back from the hospital.
Yeah.
He's got Notre Dame up winning 45-17. Alex Rohan has Notre Dame 45, Florida State 13. Fifth Horseman with a little bit more reasonable comeback pick. Notre Dame 52, Florida State 16.
He's the first one to put Notre Dame in the 50s, right?
Yes, he is. Well, it's a little not as much as his 402 earlier. Yeah. But I love the excitement. That's what I love about opening day. I really do. Kenny Moore says Notre Dame 34, Florida State 20. Cone is going to throw for about 350 yards of 4 TDs. I'll say again, if Cone puts up those kind of numbers, the score is going to look a lot more like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got another super chat, Brian. Let me throw this one in there from Patrick Barnes, our buddy. Thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate it. It says 33-17 Irish. Thanks for another great podcast, guys.
You are welcome. You are very welcome. Andrew Goss says they're going to target Blake Fisher, and I'm like, can't wait. I get it. I'm looking forward to it.
That's great.
Notre Dame 2164, Notre Dame 38, Florida State 10. Super chat.
I could see Florida State, not putting a bunch of points on the board. I could see it. Excuse me.
And my 20 comes from, again, them having a bit of a late score. But I think they have some weapons on offense. I really do.
Tyler Reese, thank you for the super chat, Tyler. Very much appreciated. He says, how worried are you about all the lack of continuity on the offensive line? I'm so nervous.
I'm with you. I mean, that's one of the concerns that we have. That's probably my biggest concern about the offense. I mean, I need to see Jack Cohn do it, but I'm pretty confident he's going to be good. I need to see the receivers play well. I'm not concerned about them playing well. I'm more concerned about them staying healthy. I think they're loaded at running back. I think they're loaded at tight end. But what's the offensive line going to be? Right. Are they going to give up a lot of negatives? I mean, again, if they're giving up run throughs and giving up tackles for loss and sacks and some of the things that I talked about in the Notre Dame defense, early down negatives is a key for the Notre Dame defense. Well, if Florida State's defense is doing that to Notre Dame because the offensive line, isn't playing well as a unit, then yeah, Tyler, that's a big concern, very big concern, and it's going to tell us a lot about where this team is. Again, early on, that's the kind of thing that can be developed. And that's why I said, if that happens, I'm concerned about it for this game.
Yeah.
It'll get better.
Right.
The concern I have is more beyond the continuity, is more of, are they going to be physical? Because that's more of the physicality in the opener says more about your mindset than it does your preparation. And preparation meaning from an execution standpoint. That just means you were developed to be passive, to catch. And it's harder to turn that knob up once the season starts. The continuity part that results from sacks or tackles for loss, that can be cleaned up, right? That can be coached out of them. That can be done away with. It's the other thing that's harder to fix. So, yes, I'm concerned about that, but the bigger issue I have is, or question I have is, are they going to play physical? If they play physical, the result won't affect me too much. Michael Johnson with the super chat. Michael, thank you very, very much. I hope somewhere in here, Michael, we see your game prediction.
Yeah, man.
So we'll see it.
Yeah, Michael. Thank you, Michael, for the support.
Yes, absolutely. Michael Eakin says, let's go Irish. He says, I'm pimped, but I thought he was going to go with that. I was like, he's going to ride it. He is coming hard. Apparently, he mistyped and said he's pumped. I kind of like that you were pimped a lot better. That just sounded more fun, Michael. But I'm just having some fun with you.
We got a
Michael. Michael is pumped.
That's great. We got a couple more here. Jay, thanks for the support, man. In the super chat, he says, I think the defense gets 5 takeaways, 3 picks, 2 forced fumbles. Go Irish. That would be awesome.
That would look like, if that happens, you're going to see this.
Yeah, exactly. You can just keep going back to that 52-16. Yeah. And then Robert Wilson Jr. for the support, man. The
Jay and Robert, both of you, thank you very, very much for the super chat. Awesome. You can see how fired up people are, Vince. We're getting a lot more super chats than I anticipated today.
Me too.
People are pumped up, and I'm excited. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Justin Hunter has Notre Dame winning 30-17. Andrew Goss says, I love to see 50 points from Notre Dame. That would be great. I'm not predicting it, but that would be phenomenal.
But would it surprise you though? Because I don't think it would surprise.
In an opener, it would me. In an opener, yeah. Right. And again, I think Florida State's going to be better than people think. If Notre Dame hangs 50 on Florida State, then that means I'm going to be like, wow, this team's even better than I thought it was. Unless the 50 comes from like a blocked punt, you got a kick return. Florida State throws like 3 picks, like something like that. In an opener, I guess I just would be shocked if they just come out, just click. I mean, to score 50 points, you need to either be way better than the team you're playing, or you need to be,
a lot of bounces have gone your way.
Yeah. And I mean, what was the last time Notre Dame scored 50 in an opener was what? 2012, right? Against Navy, they beat Navy really bad.
Was that the one in Ireland?
That was the one in Ireland, yeah.
Housed them, yeah.
It's 27 against Duke last year, 35 against Louisville on the road, 24 against Michigan. Again, they were a better team than Florida State. 49 against Temple, right? That was a precursor to that being a really good offense. You had 47 against Texas, but that was an overtime. 38 against Texas the year before. I mean, think about how good Notre Dame played against Texas in 2015. And scored 38 points.
Right.
You had 48 against Rice in 2014, and they played well that game. 28 against Temple in 2012, and then 50 against Navy back in 2012. So 50 would surprise me. But again, 50 is a lot of stinking points against on the road against a team like Florida State. I just don't see that. I mean, low 40s would have me fired up about if they get 38 or more against Florida State in a win, I'm going to say, okay, that's a good start for the offense. It's a good foundation to set as you get for Toledo and your next couple opponents. Because, again, I don't think Florida State's going to be as bad as they were last year. Look, and where you're coming from, Vince, I mean, look, Florida State gave up 36 points a game last year. I get it. I just, number one, it's the opener. Number two, I think they're just going to be better.
They have to be. I feel like they have to be. I don't feel like Mike Norvell is going to allow them to be that bad 2 years in a row. But
Michael Eakin says Brian torched the FSU site broadcast. It was really only one guy. The other guys were just. I mean, they were all good. I enjoyed being on with those guys. But yeah, he was coming at me with some stuff that's like, yeah, that's not really how it is. The Fifth Horseman says Michael Mayer is going to have 3 TDs this week, 7 more to go. Because he and I have a little bet. If Michael Mayer gets to 10 touchdowns, I think I have to give him some stuff. If he has less than that, then he's gonna join the Irish Breakdown Booster Club.
Ooh,
Mace Case prediction, Vince. And you got to do it in the Mr. T voice, Vince. Okay, the Clubber Lang, right?
Yeah.
Clubber Lang voice.
Yeah. Pain. I predict lots of Seminoles in pain.
Okay, that sounded more like Hulk Hogan, but that's okay.
I pity the fool.
Okay, you're doing Mr. T in the Hulk Hogan voice.
I got nothing.
Caleb Collins, who is committing tomorrow? No one's committing tomorrow. I think there might be somebody maybe commit today. We'll see. Scott Wolfel, let's freaking go. And I did that way more calmly than he did because he's got 9 exclamation marks, and I don't want to scream into the microphone
like I just did. All right.
Mandrew Goss, Brian showed them why we have the best fan base and why IB is the best. I absolutely agree on both of those points, if I do say so myself. But I definitely agree on the first part. Definitely agree on the first part. Caleb Collins, 52 to 24 in favor of the Irish. That would be a great way to start. We have another super chat down there, Vince. Another big one.
Got a big one.
I think Senior Francis is fired up. Or no, Garen Knutson and Senior Francis have very similar avatars.
Yes, they do.
I looked at.
Yes, they do.
Garen coming with the fire. Love it.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Garen says we are going to beat them down like IMG did to Bishop Sycamore. Go Irish.
Oh, are they get fake school university? Is that what they're going to start calling Florida State? Fake school U?
Hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome.
At least
Garen,
we know
Florida State. Thank you so much for the super chat. That is great.
At least we know Florida State has D1 offers.
Yeah, we haven't really. And here's the difference between Notre Dame and Florida State fans. Some Florida State fan tried to troll Notre Dame last night, and he said, talking about Manti Te'o's fake girlfriend, which is like, come on, guys, that's a decade old. Like, find new material, right?
Seriously.
But then he didn't. He called it Sycamore Bishop. It's like, and I said, if you're going to troll, at least get the stinking name of the school right. Notre Dame fans come correct. That's the difference.
Oh,
they come correct. So, Garen, thank you for that. Thank you for proving my point that Notre Dame fans bring it. Okay. There's no B game for Notre Dame fans. We bring our A game. Okay. We bring our A game. So I appreciate you. Appreciate you very, very much. Andrew Fry says, looks like there may need to be an emergency show soon. Coaches have put out the signal. They're just very well may be.
Emergency show. Michael
S. Brian saw you on the FSU show last night and thought you did a great job in describing not the strengths and weaknesses of both Florida Dame and Florida State Notre Dame. In fact, the hosts seemed quite impressed. I appreciate that.
So what show was it?
It was the Florida State. It was a YouTube show with Florida State. Okay. Right. I think Logan Robinson is the guy that does it. He does a really good job. I think he's actually still in college, which is kind of pretty cool. Young entrepreneur. But no, they did a good job. There was one guy in particular who was very much coming from like a sort of a fan point of view. And he was the one that did most of the talking.
Gotcha.
And
I'm going to look it up because the people, I need to watch this. That's what needs to happen.
I've seen some of the stuff that Logan has done, and it's really good. It's really professional. And I said they were having some fun last night. It was meant to be a fun show. It wasn't meant to be like we're going to dive X's and O's. It was meant to be a fun show, and I had some fun with it. But it kind of just felt like maybe he was purposely throwing me softballs, that they were just because it was so easy to just kind of knock them out of the park. But we'll see. We'll see.
All right, Brian, I got to roll. I got to get to class, but I will see everybody tomorrow for the best day of the week. Friday mailbag. I'll see everybody tomorrow.
Sounds good. So we got some more predictions we're going to get to here. Matt Sakalowski says, can anyone tell me what hashtag Irish Rising 23 means? I've seen it all over Notre Dame social media. My guess is recruiting hype for 2023. Yes, Irish Rising is the 2023 slogan for Notre Dame in recruiting. And also September 1st. So a lot of that push that came a couple days ago, it was about Notre Dame at midnight. September 1st, midnight was when Notre Dame and teams could start reaching out to commits and officially kind of talking to them. And so that's what that push was for. It was for that. And then Irish Rising 23 is just sort of the recruiting class. And they kind of do it for all the class. They come up with some different kind of nickname for all the classes. And unfortunately, Vince has left. So Michael Eakin cannot get his wish, which is he wanted Vince to give us an Irish jig. It's almost game time. That would have been classic. All right, let's get down here. I see I got booted a little bit. Hope I didn't get booted down too far. Yep, D-Rock, I was getting ready to get to your question, and I got booted. So I didn't get to your question. So there were some questions on there that I didn't get to see. So I do apologize with that. I don't know if Vince is still around, if he still has that D-Rock's question. that was underneath. That was up there about he was going to ask a question. So Vince, if you're still down there, if you looks like you were booted as well. Okay. Matt D says, I think we could see the freshman kicker this year. Once you have confidence issues, it's tough to get back. I hope Dorr regains his, but won't be surprised to see our Frost kicker. I hope not. I mean, I don't disagree with you, Matt, at all. I hope that doesn't happen, just because, like you said, it would mean that that Dorr's confidence would have to result in misses, and I hope that we don't see that. Irish Cubby says, right now Notre Dame has 2 to 3 wide receivers who could have started last year back and healthy. Cone is better than Book. I don't disagree with you on that. Michael Eakin says, kicking game may be a big issue in our 5 mid-game season stretch. I agree. And, of course, that begins with, like, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, USC, and North Carolina. Agree completely. And I think kicking could be important in this game on Saturday as well. Matt D says, Irish Cubby, I don't think better is the correct wording. I think he sees the field better than Book. He doesn't have Book's athleticism. I don't think Book being more athletic makes Book a better player. Matt, with all due respect, I disagree with you on this. I do think he's better just based on what he did at Wisconsin. You know, when you look at his ability to in this offense, you need a quarterback to be a passer first and a athlete second. That's just a fact for this offense to reach its full potential. I would sacrifice Book's athleticism for better passing, and that's where I think the difference is going to be. We have a Florida State fan who thinks Florida State is going to go from 3-6 to just being phenomenal, apparently. He says, Cone will be eaten by Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas on multiple occasions. We will see if your stellar elite running backs can come take the pressure off. So I see a lot of this stuff about Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas. And Jermaine Johnson, I get. I mean, he's a good football player. There's no doubt. I would say, again, if Jermaine Johnson was that much of an elite player, he would not be at Florida State for a 5th season. He'd be in the National Football League. I think that's something that has to be considered. Obviously, he's part of that. But look, he was a good pass rusher at Georgia. And Notre Dame saw him in 2019, and he had a really good pass rush late in the game. Notre Dame had a little bit of a blown assignment. But the stuff about Thomas is the one that I find a little bit more I don't know if Florida State fans necessarily have an ideal view of what kind of player he is. Yeah, I think he's a very good football player. Don't get me wrong, but he was not really a pass rusher at Florida State. That wasn't really his game. He wasn't a guy that was just screaming off the edge. He's 6'2". He's 270 pounds. He was more of a guy that was honestly more of a run defender. Last year at Florida State, or at South Carolina, in 301 snaps, according to Pro Football Focus, he had 10 total pressures. In 2018, he didn't play. He played only 28 plays in 2019, so I believe there's an injury. 2018, he played 541 snaps, and he had 16 total pressures. That's not a lot. In 2017, he played 616 snaps. He had, here we go. And it just broke. Cooper Flanagan, 2023 tight end Cooper Flanagan has committed to Notre Dame. That was the breaking news that we were anticipating. It has now happened. I've got to publish these stories real quick. If you'll just give me a quick second, got to get these going and get these out. So appreciate the patience here. But Cooper Flanagan has committed to Notre Dame. So that is out. Just got to tweet these out real fast. I appreciate the patience, but I had a feeling that was going to happen. So I want to get those out real quick. But anyway, as you can see from the things that I just put out, Keir Thomas was not a guy that in his entire career at South Carolina that was ever a dominant pass rusher. So I don't see that being a guy that's going to eat Notre Dame alive. Give me a second. Okay, thank you very much for your patience there. So, I mean, again, Jermaine Johnson could, but if Thomas did, that would be a very bad sign for him. I would say more about Notre Dame than it does Florida State. Let's get down to here some more questions. Irishman 7114. I feel like the beginning of the game will raise some blood pressures at Notre Dame works to find their footing in the first game. However, Notre Dame ultimately pulls away 45-17. Brandon P says this will be the most fun game I've been to in the past 4 years, hoping for it to be competitive. I don't want it to be competitive. I hate competitive games. Jeff Perry, I saw you on the FSU podcast. You killed him. I don't like the redhead guy. I thought he was a jerk. He's just mad because you knew more than his team did. I didn't think he was a jerk. I just think he's just got that real fiery personality. I thought he was, I didn't take it as being disrespectful. I enjoyed it. He's just a fan. I mean, he's a fan of Florida State, and he's excited about what they're going to be. And I mean, this is the time of the year for that. This is the time of the year to be excited about what your team is going to be. I don't know if they're going to be quite as excited as maybe he would be otherwise. So we got another super chat. Tommy Guns, time to move into a commit podcast. Let's go. I'm not going to do that just yet. We're going to finish up this one and then go to another podcast. So we'll start that one here in a little bit, but I want to get back to some of these questions because we are going to finish off. We're going to finish strong, right? We're not moving on just because there's more news. We're going to finish this show off. Dave Rodriguez, the Florida State fan, says, can someone explain to me why a healthy, much improved Florida State offense will drop less than last year? Number one, because it is going to be a healthier Notre Dame defense. Notre Dame starting strong safety started at corner against Florida State last year. Let's not forget, Dave, that Notre Dame hadn't played a football game in almost a month when they played Florida State last year because they had to shut the program down because of COVID. Notre Dame had several players out for that game. The other aspect of it, too, is there wasn't much film on Jordan Travis. He'd really only played against Jacksonville State. He hadn't really played a lot in the first two games. And number two, I think you're assuming a lot about the Florida State offense. You're assuming they're going to be improved, but apparently you're not assuming the same about Notre Dame. With all due respect, Notre Dame has a much more proven track record of being able to reload and rebuild than Florida State does. So that would be why people believe that. I think Notre Dame fans also understand, since they know their team, and we have done a good job of preparing Notre Dame fans to know Florida State in an objective manner, that Notre Dame also offensively last year was not 100%. There was no Braden Lindsey, a healthy Braden Lindsey last year. There was no Kevin Austin last year. So that's why the anticipation is that. And you also lost some of your best players from last year, especially Asante Samuel. James Ingalls, based on what we've seen during spring fall camps, Notre Dame 44, Florida State 17. That would be fun to watch. Bang 1801, Ohio State, Minnesota is going to be much closer than people think. That'd be interesting. I'm not sure about that one. Let's see here. Dave Rodriguez, the Florida State fan, he's doubling down. I love it. Florida State will put up 30 plus on Notre Dame in the case that we go without a surplus of turnovers. Okay. Saul Ascension, 41-17 Notre Dame. Love it. Griff says he finally got my IB hat and Gap Closers shirt ordered. I love it. I absolutely love it. Alejandro Gonzalez says, just got my Gap Closer t-shirt. Go Irish. Love it, Alejandro. Thank you very much for that. Griff says Notre Dame 45, Florida State 17. Benjamin, Notre Dame 49-14. 82 Slice. Last night on the FSU podcast was no contest. They were like freshmen sitting in on a 400 level class. I appreciate y'all very much. Chief Brody, Notre Dame 34-21 victory. Robert Thidoff, but Vince, before you leave, Vince is still down there. Robert says, Vince and Brian, love your show and analysis, but I'm not as confident for Sunday. This is mostly due to so many slow starts and disappointments since the 1993 BC upset. But Notre Dame has not lost an opener since 2006. They blew out Temple in 2016 or 17. They beat a very good Michigan team in the opener in 2018. Beat Louisville and that was a good Louisville team by 18 the next year. And then last year they played terrible, but it was a little bit of a different circumstance. Again, I don't see some of the blowouts. Some of these other scores, like I don't see this, like Jason Lynch has 54-17 Notre Dame rolls. Rob, I don't see that, but I don't think this is going to be an overly competitive game. Matt D, Notre Dame 34, Florida State 27. Brandon, is this another Florida State fan? Florida State 31, Notre Dame 24. Irish Cubby, Notre Dame 38-21. Let's see here. 82 Slice, Notre Dame wins 34-24, a little closer than most think. Chief Brody, last time at Doak, Indy came out hot, I think. Yeah, they moved the ball pretty well in that game early on. They did. They actually had a pretty decent lead at halftime, but then Brian Van Gorder started getting torched. Carmine Burr, Notre Dame 32-29 for the win. Let's get down here to some more. Gonna have to multitask here real fast, getting this commitment stuff out. So just please appreciate your patience. Just give me one more second here. Okay, so we've got Soul Ascension. Notre Dame will rush for over 200 yards. That would be a really good sign. If Notre Dame rushes for over 200 yards this game, that would be a really, really good sign. Martin Demo, Notre Dame 38-17. Searcher Green sees an ugly game, 21-10. That would surprise me quite a bit. James Ingles, Brian, I'd like to see a balance of 250 rushing plus 250 passing. That'd be a great sign, certainly. Dave Rodriguez, Florida State will rush for 230 yards on Freeman's defense. Okay. Michael Johnson, 52-20. 2 for Travel sees a close game. He has Notre Dame winning 24-20 in a competitive game. Chief Brody, would BK run it up on them in their own house? No, that's not BK style. Not their style. Omar Austin, Notre Dame wins 41-10. The defense dominates, and as Liam Gaming says, hit the like button before you take off, please. Dave Rodriguez still thinks Notre Dame is going to win, but he sees it as a competitive game, 34-28. He has Notre Dame winning. Appreciate you stopping by. Matt D, let's see here. Matt D, agree with you, Chief Brody. I don't think he ever runs it up on purpose. If our players can score, he will let them. He doesn't always do that either, unfortunately. Matt Russell, 38-20 because of late scores, go Irish. And he says late scores for FSU. Dave Rodriguez kind of adding a little bit more context to his prediction. He sees Notre Dame winning 34-28, but he says Florida State puts up 21 in the first 3 quarters before depth issues strike. Jay Mingle says, my biggest worry is being overly aggressive and being out of position, i.e. committing too many dudes at the line of scrimmage and giving up big plays. Yep, I think that is a very fair concern. Let's see here. Brandon P says, who do y'all predict as Florida State starter at quarterback? I'll be shocked if it's not Jordan Travis. And there's a couple reasons for that. And let's just assume that Mackenzie Melton's healthy just for the sake of argument, because if he's not healthy, it's a no-brainer. Jordan Travis is going to start. But just for the sake of argument, let's say that he's healthy. From everything I have read, people I've talked to around Florida State, it doesn't sound like Mackenzie Milton has necessarily separated himself from Jordan Thompson. And when you're in a situation where you've got a quarterback battle between a guy that played a lot last year and a guy who is new and it's close, I think you almost always have to go with the guy that's been there. I unless there's like some sort of character issue that we don't know about, which I have never heard when it comes to this young man. So that would surprise me a little bit. I think it'll be a situation where it'll be Jordan Travis. I'll be surprised, to be honest with you, if it's not Jordan Travis, barring an injury to him, in my opinion. Justin Knox, I can see Irish 52-10 as much as Irish 27-17, kind of slow start offensively, perhaps, but no real trouble during the game. Let's see here. Robert Laster stops by, says, I'm a diehard Florida State fan. Go Noles. I just hope it's a damn good game. And that's one thing that we unfortunately have not seen in this rivalry, really, the last several games, to be honest with you. I mean, if not just the games that Notre Dame has won, but outside of 2014, there's been some ugly games on both directions since that great 1993 game. But I don't ever root against good games, Robert, but just from a Notre Dame standpoint, from a work standpoint, it's always better for me when the game is out of hand, because then I can start getting going on my work a little bit sooner and be more prepared. But that's just me being a little bit selfish. But I do think Florida State is an ascending program. Even if this game doesn't show it, I do believe they're an ascending program. No question. Oh, goodness. Robert Laster also says, Florida State fan says, I'm a FSU fan, but I don't think y'all are going to crush us like y'all think. I just hope it's a good game. I don't see, Robert, I mean, my prediction, I don't see a 52-17 game either. I just, when I look at it, I feel it's a situation where I just don't think Florida State's there yet. I don't think Florida State's at the point yet as a program where they're able to really go out and just hang with a team like Notre Dame yet. I don't think they're there yet. Could they get there at some point in time? Sure. I think they can. I think they can get to that point. I just don't think they're there yet. We'll see if I'm right or wrong about that, but I don't think that they are. James Ingle says, any confirmation on the lower body injury sustained? I've read it is almost similar to the injury Jalen Waddle sustained. Brian Kelly said that. Brian Kelly said in the press conference that it's similar to the one that Jalen Waddle had. Obviously, Jalen Waddle came back and played that year, but there's always the severities, right? You can have the same injury, but mine is more severe than yours, which means my recovery time is going to take a lot longer. With your chest says, love this community. Let's get that W. James Ingle says, losing Maris is a big blow. I just hope that Bertrand will be as disruptive as he can be. I don't think he'll be as disruptive. I think he'll be a little better run defender, but I don't think he's going to be as disruptive. They're different players. All right, Irish Ninja. The only way the Noles win the game is if Notre Dame scores less than 20 points. I don't see that happening. Go Irish, destroy FSU. Jack Sullivan says Notre Dame wins 38-17. I think it could be worse. If Notre Dame starts off hot, it'll be interesting to see how Florida State responds if they go down 2 scores in the first half. I don't think this Florida State team's going to roll over like they did in 2018. I don't see that. I think they'll battle. I don't think they have the horses yet. I really don't. Chief Brody, I could see it playing out like last year's ACC title game, except Notre Dame is Clemson in this case. I could see that, Chief. I could see that. Tommy Guns, 42-13. A couple fourth quarter field goals for Florida State. Notre Dame domination start to finish. Oh, let's go. Let's see if we can get some more questions down here. Where are we at? Jeff Luke, are you going to do a second show? Yes, we will do a second show here in a little bit. Tommy Gunn says Big 12 apparently focusing in on BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston for expanding. Again, I wouldn't put a whole lot in stock into a lot of these rumors. Remember that Florida State and Clemson were getting ready to go to the SEC. I think that's probably the first group that they're going to do some research on, but there's other programs that they're definitely looking at. There's just some of the teams that they have to be kind of quiet about because they're in other conferences. And remember, the alliance did not include the Big 12. So the Big 12 has no loyalty to not trying to poach a Pac-12 or a Big 10 team. Senior Francis says, love to see Notre Dame beating out Michigan again for a recruit. No question about it. Jay Wickie Jr. says, commit podcast who? Cooper Flanagan, 2023 tight end from De La Salle. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Subway alum, hey Brian, how much stock are you putting in the Memphis-Cincinnati games when Mike Norvell and Marcus Freeman coached against each other? Memphis was able to put up points in those games. Couple things about those games. Number one is Memphis had a kick return for a touchdown in the year that they scored 34 on the opening drive of the game. I also think Memphis had the better players. Memphis moved the ball well on Cincinnati in those games, ran the ball pretty well. It was on back-to-back weeks. That's the only time they played. Was back-to-back games in 2019. And Cincinnati's defense played pretty well early in both of those games. Their offense just couldn't do anything. And eventually Memphis wore them down. Coleman Clark says, what do you see as the final record for Notre Dame this year? I went 12-0 just because I just couldn't point to a team that they're going to lose to. Vince went 11-1. We actually did a full show about this past weekend, Coleman, so you should check it out. We explained kind of why we see that. Stephen Roberts says, I see Lorenzo Styles in the two deep. Were you shocked to see that? Do you think Notre Dame actually plays him this year, or will he have to wait until his junior, senior to get some burn time? I've heard he's going to play this year. We'll see if that's true or not, but I've heard he's going to play. And I wasn't surprised he was in the two deep. Xavier Watts has been hurt a lot of camp, so I expected Lorenzo to be there. Matt D, I'll be wearing my gap closer hat at the Purdue game. Love it. John Gallagher, what's your prediction for Notre Dame's first offensive drive? I don't have one, John. I mean, I don't kind of get into that sort of the details of predictions. It's more of here's what I want to see. I want to see them coming out being aggressive. I want to see them executing. I want to see them being physical at the line of scrimmage and getting points. That's what I want to see. I don't make predictions necessarily for things like that. Curtis Hewitt, sorry, got in late. Notre Dame 48, Florida State 17. Lee Gannon, Notre Dame 35-21. Omar Austin says, I love how you have the commitment stories all ready to go. Bryant, blink twice if you have one for Tate and Moore. I don't have one for Tate and Moore. Sorry. I wish I did, but I don't. That's really funny. Now I'm afraid to blink because someone's going to think. Okay, I don't want anybody to get confused. I'm not blinking right now. Craig Sebring, Notre Dame 35, Florida State 10. Larry Friedel says that Notre Dame's going to win this one 41-16. Joseph Salvatore, slow start, but Notre Dame pulls it off in the end, 31-21. Let's see here. Wade, you know what? PT double OT. Is Dave going to show up to the next YouTube live to eat crow when it's not close and they rush for nowhere near 230 yards? Probably not, but you know what? I got respect for Dave coming into the podcast and kind of going to enemy territory. And look, he's obviously a big Florida State fan. I haven't seen any posts where he's been disrespectful. He doesn't know a lot about Notre Dame. He just doesn't. He is buying a lot of the national media hype and the what Notre Dame used to be kind of hype. Well, you know, it is what it is. But I always appreciate fans of other teams coming into the podcast and being willing to go toe-to-toe. As long as they're respectful, I have no problem with it. I rather enjoy it. I rather enjoy it. Wade Garrett, 44-13 in favor of Notre Dame. FSU O-line will get beat all game, I hope. I'm with you on that one. Patrick Bird, 45-17 Irish big. Lee Gannon says Travis leads FSU with 100 yards rushing. Other backs get 80. Michael Morris sees a 42-9 Notre Dame victory. Chris Fortson, do you think Marcus Freeman will have a spy for Jordan Travis? Who do you think it may be? I don't think that he will. If he was going to, I think it'd probably be he'll do a couple things. Number one would probably be the Mike linebacker will do some of it. And the other thing is I think he'll do some stunts where he'll drop a defensive lineman right in the middle of the field and have it be that guy at times as well. Jonathan Hill-Kemma, wonder if Norvell is going to break out the old cornrows and beard look from his college days. I doubt he's going to do that. Matt Deese has got to get ready for work. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the live Irish Breakdown shows. Chad Williams, late to the show. Do you think Patojo is the next player that can have as much impact on Havoc plays as Maris was pegged to do? I mean, he's listed in third team right now, so that's something I'm interested to see, Chad, is are they going to actually use him on Sunday? Or is he going to, is he legitimately a third teamer or not? I don't know. I think Jordan Patojo could be a very disruptive player as long as Jordan Patojo's head is screwed on straight. That's always going to be the big concern with Jordan Patojo. If his head's on straight, he's going to be a disruptive player. If it's not, he's going to be in the doghouse. With your chest, I think it could end up like the North Carolina game last year. The score line makes it appear closer than the reality actually was. RJG Irving, I don't see a blowout because a dominant lead will give us a chance to use the twos and Buckner. Jeff Perry, is it possible that Nebraska or Colorado comes back to the Big 12? I don't see Colorado doing that because for Colorado, it's all about the money and they love the West Coast. Nebraska, I'd love to see it. I don't think the Big Ten wants Nebraska. I wish there was a way that they could get out. All right, Larry Friedel, Built Bars are coming today. So Larry is one of the people that has taken advantage of the Irish Breakdown discount code for Built Bars. I got a big order of them the other day. Well, I should say I got a small order. My wife got a big order of Built Bars the other day. I'm glad yours are coming. And if you want to try Built Bars or like Built Bars, you can use the promo code below. I have the link to Built Bar with the promo code information in the description bar below. You can take advantage of that. If you know someone that likes Built Bars and they're not an Irish Breakdown listener, don't care. Give them the promo code. They can take advantage of it. Jeff Fluke, the Irish dropped 50 on Florida State, 52-24. Going to get to some final predictions here, and then we're going to wrap this up. Christopher Sally, I don't see Florida State handling the Notre Dame D-line. Notre Dame 37-13. Let's see here. Nicholas Grosh, even in national championship years, see 73 and 88. New offensive lines got off to slow start, so the score gets held down 24-13. You and Vince do a great job. Thank you for that, Nicholas. I will say one difference between this season and the 1988 team, because remember, they had a very competitive game against Michigan, as I believe that was a really good Michigan team, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna look this up right now. But they beat Michigan, was it like 20? I'm not even guess what the score was. It was a low-scoring game, 19-17. And then they beat Michigan State 20-3. That was a little bit of a different situation because that was a really good Michigan team. Michigan that year went 9-1, finished ranked 4th in the country. Florida State's not going to be that. Lee Gannon with the Super Chat. Lee, thank you very much. Just wanted to say thanks for all you guys do for us. Best analysis on the net. I appreciate that very, very much. Very much. Eric Carroll, how would you compare the speed of the offenses Freeman faced with Cincinnati versus those he will see at Notre Dame? Do you think there might be a bit of a learning curve for him? I don't think the speed will be any different, Eric, because it's not so much the speed that opponents have, it's the speed that opponents have relative to the speed he has. His defenses at Notre Dame are going to be very fast. He has athletes, he has speed that he did not have at those other schools as well. So I don't think there's going to be that kind of a learning curve. The learning curve would be if he was facing faster teams with his players. But I think we saw in the bowl game against Georgia last year that he knows how to prepare for a team with better players, and he did a good job of that last year. Jordan Schreiber, Notre Dame 52-7. There we go. All right. That is going to do it. So I want to thank everybody that joined the show today. We're going to try to do something here in a little bit. I got to get a couple things done first. But we'll do a chat here in a little bit later this afternoon where we'll break down the commitment of Cooper Flanagan, who is the latest 2023 player to commit to Notre Dame. So everyone, thanks for joining the show. Before you leave, hit the like button, hit the subscribe bell, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you get alerted to all the shows. Make sure you check out irishbreakdown.com. And if you have not joined, let's keep this community growing. Let's keep this conversation growing. Join boards.irishbreakdown.com. I was gone the last 2 days, did very little chatting, and there was so much great conversation. I was so happy to see it. Tons of stuff going on. So come join our site. Really dive in fully to what we're doing at Irish Breakdown by joining the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. You can do monthly, you can do annual. And if you're not a message board person and you just want to support the show and you've asked, hey, how can I support Irish Breakdown? Go to boards.irishbreakdown.com and go to join. What you're going to see there is an opportunity to join our booster club. We have Shamrock level, blue level, and gold level. If you just want to support us, but you're not a message board person, you can do that. You can also do that with the monthly and annual. If you don't have to post, if it's just a way to support our channel in a way that makes sure that we get more of your money goes to us and not Google or YouTube, which we're fine either way. Any support you give is tremendously appreciated by us, even if that support is just your time. So as Michael Leakin says, this was a great show, Brandon Vince, let's go Irish. And I think that's a great way to end it. Let's go Irish. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great, safe rest of your weekend. Enjoy watching college football tonight. Ohio State, Wisconsin, UCF, Boise State. Tomorrow's North Carolina, Virginia Tech. Saturday is going to be some great games. So lots of great football going on. So make sure that you're there to check it all out. And, of course, Sunday night, Notre Dame, Florida State. We'll be back with you again tomorrow for our Friday mailbag. I hope everybody has a great, safe rest of your day and weekend. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.